All right. Hey guys. Uh, so I uploaded this file in Dropbox. If anyone wants to re-pick up from this point, or feel free to follow along with whatever you're doing as well. So last class, disregarding that, we looked at 2D drafting, kind of extending that. We looked at curves, some transformations, and then we started to get into solids. And today that's kind of what we're really going to focus on. We're just going to start playing around with some Boolean operations. We're going to start playing around with some transformations. And we might even get into some surfaces, but that's really more for next week. So in this case, we're going to be playing around with more, I guess, basic geometry. So, of course, we're just going to keep following with this example. I'm not going to refer so much to that PDF, just simply because we already have it drawn out, and in your assignment you won't really have anything to refer to except for your own drawings. So we'll just take it from here. So we were last modeling these piles, and we Boolean unioned them, and we're sort of going to make this, but from going to, I guess, bottom to top. That's a good way to make this. So what we're going to do is we're going to make this base here, and from what I remember, it sort of had this, I guess, like a, what would you call it, like cruciform style structure underneath. So there was the some sort of beams going across in the middle here, so we'll kind of work on that. One thing that's good to do, and you'll find, so as someone brought up last class, like, isn't it easier to just kind of work in 3D and 2D at the same time rather than doing this? The answer, yes. For this assignment, you know, it's good to learn both 2D and 3D. But from now on, I'm not going to be drawing kind of like a reflected ceiling plan here per se, although I will be drawing one to assist us in making the 3D geometry. So what I mean by that is I'm going to switch into my top view because we have these piles here. And I'm going to just start working with this, and I'm going to essentially make a 2D representation of the 3D geometry. We're going to extrude it up. Last class, we sort of mostly looked at primitive solids, so in this case, the cylinder. But in this class, we're going to get more into actually drawing out solids, extruding them, and then transforming them. So in this case, I'm going to go to the top view. I don't really worry about my other views in this case. We'll switch back to them later. So in this case, it's not totally necessary because you can always do that transform project to C-plane command to flatten everything out. But if you want to make sure you're working on the ground plane here, you can turn on your planar and project before snapping to anything. And no matter where you draw, so I'll draw a snap to these things, if you remember, it should draw on the ground on the XY plane like that. So that's what we're going to do for this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into polyline. So on the side here, again, all these can be accessible from the top, curve, polyline, polyline, or as you get more into the commands, you can just type in your command line. So I'm going to go to polyline, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to snap to the center of all these piles like this. I'm going to turn off smart track because we don't really need it right now. So I'm just going to snap to the center. We could also just drag a rectangle from this corner to this corner. There's lots of ways of doing this. And then just closing it. So when you draw a curve like that, and all of a sudden your command stops, like it just did there, it just means that you've made a closed curve. So don't worry if that happens. That's a good thing most of the time. Now, this might be a kind of time where I guess we're kind of going off of the plan here. We should stick to this, but there's something weird going on in here where for some reason it was drawn with these piles like extending up past this frame. So I think what we might do, if you're doing this drawing, and actually this will probably happen a lot if you're like, I don't know if I like that, maybe what we'll do is we'll revise this right now, because the more I think about it, the more I think like, well, this frame should kind of extend across the entire length. So what we can do for this, I'm just going to highlight these, and I'm going to hide them. So I highlighted them with the bottom right hand drag select, and I'm going to hit Control H to hide them. So that allows us to just see this right here. And then remember, we group this as well. So that's why if I select, for example, this little shape here, the entire thing selected, you can see there's still 30 curves. They're not all one object, but they are grouped. So to ungroup something, you can go to Edit, Groups, Ungroup, or as you can see right here, you can just hit Control Shift G. So that's what I'm going to do. So Control Shift G. So all I'm going to do is I could, scale this and everything. Really what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to delete this, and then I'm going to 1D scale out this bottom, structure until it's just flush right here. So if I want to scale this in 1 dimension, anyone remember the command from last class? To scale 1D, you choose scale 1D. So yeah, I guess when I ask questions like that, unless I'm trying to like throw you off the trail, which I promise I won't do, yeah, the question usually has the answer, I guess. So I'm just going to move this over too. So in this case, since it's, we just want to make this realistic enough, but there's no real dimensions to this project, I'm just going to move this over like so. And then for the other pile, I'm going to hold Alt with Gumball and just drag it over like this. And I might actually move this one over a little bit more as well, because in reality there might even be one in the middle, I'm not sure, but that looks a little bit better. We can go into our right view in this case, and maybe we want to just make sure they line up here with the ends. So to do that, we can do a little bit more of a accurate move. So I'll turn off Grid Snap. I'll go Transform Move. I'll snap to this point here, the end point here. I'll make sure Smart Track is turned on. I'll snap to this point on the end, and then I'll hold Shift to make sure I'm moving it straight across, and I'll move to that intersection point. And I'll just do the same thing with this one as well. So again, Transform Move, type Move, grab this endpoint here, grab the point we want to line it up with. I hold Shift. So this is one of these things where you can see the center snap still on. So we're sort of getting too many things happening. It's hard to snap. So if you get something like that, you can just turn off any snap mid-command, move it until we line up. Oh, it looks like we already were lined up, so that's good. So that's good to go like that. So with that being said, I'm going to regroup this drawing. So I'm just going to select all. So I'm doing the above left-hand side selection method, dragging over everything, so everything's selected. And I'm just going to hit Control G. We have our other geometry. It's all hidden right now. To unhide it, you can just simply hit Control Shift H and then select everything you want to unhide. So I'm going to select everything, and you can see the command line here, select objects to show. Did that, press enter when done, so I hit enter. So now our drawings are not lining up, but that's okay, because we can just simply grab these two piles right here, and we can move them over in our right view. So if we're snapping, if I have off, all the snaps or whatever, and I'm just moving like this. So let's go the end here to the, well, here, let's go the end there to the end there. Do you guys think this is going to be in the right place where I want it to be? Or is it going to go somewhere weird? Weird. Yeah, that's right. So you can see here it moved out. And the reason why I did that is that point there snapped to whatever point over here it was. So what we do instead, if we want to snap something to the projection plane, what two snaps should we have on? Yeah, exactly. So if we do that again, we move from that end to right there, you can now see that it is in the right place because both project and planar snap was on. So that's sort of the way we want to go. In this case, we want to do the same for these pals, so we'll just move them, grab that one, grab this one, and we'll just do the same thing. Oh, actually, these ones, they have those long top whatever pieces are right here, so we're just going to delete them, and instead we'll just copy these two poly surfaces and move them over, or copy them over, sorry. So I'm going to go to transform, copy, going to go from this point here, move them over like that. So that looks good. So now if we look at this, our drawings still all line up, but we've kind of fixed this revision. So that's sort of how you like jump back and forth between 2D and 3D and everything. And that's something that's going to happen a lot. So I'm going to delete this. I'm going to just start redoing the bomb. I think in this case, since we know this corner lines up, and since we know our outer structure here goes to this point, what we can actually do here is we can turn off project snap. We can snap to this corner here. So I just grab the rectangle corner to corner. I'm going to snap to this point here, and I'm going to drag this out. I'm making sure I have smart track on, so I can snap to this corner here and this corner here. I drag them out like so. We can see that it's intersecting with both those corners, so I just clicked and the command. And now you can see we have this kind of structure right here. So what we can do now is we can offset this to get some, I guess, thickness to this. So probably the amount we want to offset this by is the width of this pile right here. That just kind of intuitively makes sense. So with that, I'm just going to select the curve. If we want to offset a curve, what command should we use? Offset. Yeah. For future reference, I will like literally sit here staring at my screen for 20 minutes waiting for an answer. So let's do curve and then offset curve. And then the way we can choose the distance in this, so before we chose the distance by entering in a number, so you know we can enter in 5 or whatnot. The other way we can actually enter the distance is by choosing a length. So in this case, we can click on distance. We can choose this endpoint. We can choose a second distance point, which is the other end of this 2D drawing. Click it to end, and then you can see that these two lines, I guess it'll be kind of hard to see here. I'll flip this. If you see these two lines, you can see they line up perfectly with that pile there. So that's kind of how you do that. If you don't know numerically the distance you want, but you just want to offset it so it lines up with something. So I think maybe what we can do now is we're going to extrude this up. So we're going to take these two curves and we're going to extrude them up to this point here. So command, last time we dealt with primitive solids, again we accessed them through here. So you can see there's the cylinder right there. If we go to solid, you can see cylinders right here. There's box, sphere. But some really useful commands here is if you go to solid, extrude planar curve. So this is probably the command you're going to be using most for this assignment for like 3D modeling. You're going to draw it out and extrude planar curve. So in this case, we're going to go straight. So we have our two curves selected there. And you can see what's happening is it's allowing us to drag out this three-dimensional object. Again, you can set things like direction. This, if you want to enter in, you know, an actual numerical value, you can. You could even just type in right here. And you can also type in units in Rhino. We haven't really gone into units yet. But if you want to, I could type, let's say, 200 meters, M for meters, hit enter. And this is 200 meters tall. So I'm just going to rerun that command. So again, to review that, that's solid, extrude planar curve, straight, select curves to extrude, select those two, enter. The other nice thing about this command, I should say, is that you can see that Rhino kind of knows what you want to do. So if you have a curve within an outer curve like we have here, essentially it's going to make that hole for you. One thing to note is if you have two curves like this, one's a little bit, let's say, lower, so I just move that down, and you run the same command, it's still going to work, but instead what you're going to get are two different solids. So you just want to make sure everything's on the same level. So rerunning extrude planar curve. You can also do both sides if you want. So just play around with this. Set base points, another useful one. So just play around with that and sort of see how it works to you. You can drag it up to a certain point. So in this case, the end point here. So I'll just drag it up to this point and click to end the command. And then now what we have is this first extruded shape here. So that's sort of the beginning of our structure. And from here, especially on the inside, we're going to start working from maybe a little bit, less from the drawing and more just within here, because we don't see this intersection on any of our drawings. So does anyone have any questions about that? All right. So I think what we're going to do, we could go about and we could draw a bunch of, well, I guess we already did cylinders. Yeah, I guess I'll sort of go through the extrusion process in here. We'll add some like plumbing or something to this building to show some other things. So under here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the project command. Again, planar, turn that on so we know we're on the XY plane here. And I'm just going to make some cross bracing. So we want to snap to mid in this case. So mid on, snap to mid, drag it across. This is just a polyline. Snap to mid, drag it across, snap again. And then what we're going to do here is we're just going to offset these curves. So curve, offset, offset, curve. And in this case, we have the distance here. So if we want this to be the same thickness as this outer structure here, but we want it to offset on both sides, so in this case we can hit both sides, what we need to do it to make this 3, when you hit on offset on both sides, essentially what it's going to do is you can see distance here is 3. It's going to offset by 3 on this side, 3 on this side. So to make sure it's 3 in total, we can just change it to 1.5. So divide it by 2, like so. I'll delete that curve. So our distance 1.5, I'm gonna hit B, hit enter for both sides, like so. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna put a box around here. There's lots of ways of doing this. You can trim. I was just dragging a box around here. And I'm going to use curve Boolean to just kind of make this cruciform shape there. So I'm going to the little curve options here. I'm going to curve Boolean, which is the square intersecting the circle. And I am going to click that. I'm going to click in the areas I want to keep, like so. And delete input, I'm going to go to all, because I don't need any of these curves, except for the ones we want to keep. Combine regions, yes, hit enter, and now we have this cross bracing. So this is something where maybe we want to add just like a tiny little bit more interest and maybe realism to this model. So what we can do here is we can take this curve and we can move it up to here, but we won't actually extrude it all the way down. So in this case, let's turn off project. We can turn off planar. We're going to take this curve. We're going to go to transform move. We'll go from the mid, bring it up to the mid. Everything's all lined up. And maybe we only drag it to this halfway point here. So we can go transform, or sorry, solid, extrude planar curve, straight. So you can see we can drag it to the mid like so. And then we have the beginning of our structure there. So you guys will find, like I said, for this assignment, the command, you could, please try to play around with this more, but, for the most part, I have a feeling that a lot of your projects will mostly be made with a combination of drawings and then solid extrude planar curve straight. It's like the most useful solid tool out there. So maybe what we want to do, we'll sort of leave that for now. We're just sort of massing. We can go back into the model later and add more detail if we want to. But I'd say that looks good for the base for now. So the next thing we want to do is make this ramp. So with this ramp, we don't have any detail here, but we'll add some detail. Essentially what we're going to learn to do, I guess, is add maybe like a diamond kind of pattern to it, sort of add something. So with this, we're going to start by just extruding this curve. So I'm actually going to ungroup this here so we can grab that curve. So I'm going to hit Control-Shift-G. I'm going to grab this ramp that we have here, and I'm just going to, with holding Alt and Gumball, so you can see that little plus cursor, I'm going to drag it out just to copy it. And then this here, actually we can just leave it. Like, you could select it and change its layer to 3D model if you want to be, I guess, really organized. But since we're going to kind of get rid of this curve, it's an intermediary step. I normally wouldn't really take the time to do that. So just for the sake of keeping everything grouped, we're going to select everything on this layer since we changed this one. So side view, select objects, and we're just going to group them again. Another option you can have, or you can do, is of course, if you want to see geometry but you don't want to be able to move it or whatnot, you can always just put the lock on the layer as well. So I put the locks on those two layers. We can still snap to them, but we can't select them or move them or whatnot. So I'll leave those locks on. So this ramp here, we want to make sure that it lines up with this drawing here. So what we'll do is we'll go to our front view. We're going to turn on project and planar again. We're just going to move, so transform move from the bottom to right there. And then we're just going to go to solid, extrude planar curve straight. Like that. And then hit delete because I don't really need that curve anymore. And then you see we have our ramp here. So I think what I'm going to do, just to add some more interest to this, I guess usually you want to start out from less detail and kind of add in just so you make sure that you finish your project and like quite a few times. I've got hung up on like putting little bolts in structures when I was like way behind on my project. So it's a good habit to sort of start big, work your way down. But in this case, we're just going to put a pattern on here, because why not? So what you can do if you want to work on a pattern that's on the surface, I'll show you a command that I find quite useful. It's called, so you go to curve from objects, and then duplicate face border. And it's not maybe quite so necessary for a rectangle like this, but what you can see it does, I'll actually duplicate this face down here as well while we're at it. You select surfaces or faces for duplicate border, press enter when done, hit enter, and now you can see it takes the curves from the edges of those faces. So it's nice to sort of just jump back into 2D mode. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this curve here. We are going to rotate it so it's flat on the ground. So with project planar on, we're just going to go to transform rotate. Oop. Like so. And now what we have so the copy or the outline of this ramp, but flat on the ground, so we can sort of draw on it. So now we can kind of make a pattern. So I'm not totally sure what kind of pattern we want to make here, but we'll just make a star pattern. So stars, polygon, star, number of sides on your star. Does anyone have a preference for numbers of sides on stars? Okay. Personally, I like a traditional 13-sided star. And with the star tool, you can pull it out and drag it back in for the, I think the technical term is the radiosity of your star. Okay, so there's our star. And so now we're going to use rectangular array because this is a great tool to learn how to use. So in this case, what we're going to do